Narayanam Namaskritya Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of God and Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Sri Vyasadeva Gopal. Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna
Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna
Shravana Kirtanaha
Punyam Sakirtanaha
Yantastoya Bhadrani
Yantastoya
Vidyanoti Suritsatam
Vidyanoti Suritsatam.
Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of a devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly enchanted. Nashta Presha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So, we have a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, the same verse. So there was on Bhakti Purushottam got
the third paragraph.
The third paragraph. And then, what happened on Friday?
That was Friday.
That was Friday. What happened on Thursday?
Thursday was, they read the transcript of Srila Prabhupada's class and morning walk when he was here.
Oh, because that was that day, okay.
It was the 44th anniversary of Prabhupada's coming here. And Saturday was Krishna.
So, we're going to do, we start again, Psalm text 19. So I will read the Sanskrit and the English, and then the concluding sentences of each paragraph to catch us up again. So I wrote it on the board just so you could see it, because it doesn't really need to be on there with the help. So, Shwa vid varahoshtra kararai samstuta purusha pashu nayat karna pate peto jatanama gadagraja. And the translation again: men who are like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses, praise those men who never listen to the transcendental pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna, the deliverer from evils. So the concluding sentences of the first paragraph about dogs. After finishing a so-called education, the so-called educated persons move like dogs from door to door with applications for some service, and mostly they're driven away informed of no vacancy. As dogs are negligible animals and serve the master faithfully for bits of bread, a man serves the master faithfully without sufficient rewards. So then about the dogs, let's see. Human beings are expected to accept the remnants of food offered to Lord Sri Krishna, and the Lord accepts foodstuff from the categories of leaves, flowers, fruits, etc. Bhagavad Gita 9:26. As prescribed by Vedic scriptures, no animal food is offered to the Lord. Therefore, a human being is meant to eat a particular type of food. He should not imitate the animals to derive so-called vitamin values. Therefore, a person who has no discrimination in regard to eating is compared to a hog, which might mention how hogs go so low as to eat stool, so it's a pretty big insult there. But it's true enough in many ways. Actually, alcohol that people drink is a stool of microorganisms. So anyway, the camel, let's see. Thorns, the camel sucks his own blood with thorny twigs. The thorns the camel eats cut the tongue of the camel, and so blood begins to flow within the camel's mouth. The thorns mixed with fresh blood create a taste for the foolish camel, and so he enjoys the thorn-eating business with false pleasure. Similarly, the great business magnates, industrialists who work very hard to earn money by different ways and questionable means, eat the thorny results of their actions mixed with their own blood. Therefore, the Bhagavatam has situated these diseased fellows along with the camels. So then we're down to the ass. For today's topic, the ass.
just want to make your, the microphone a little closer.
Maybe not that close. Okay. So, is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
So, the ass is an animal who is celebrated as the greatest fool, even amongst the animals. The ass works very hard and carries burdens of the maximum weight without making profit for itself. Asterisk, meaning footnote. My telephone says the word footnote, but doesn't give the footnote. So I have to read here. So here it is in tiny print. Human life is meant for earning values. This life is called artadam, or that which can deliver values. And what is the greatest value of life? It is to return home back to Godhead, as indicated in the Bhagavad Gita 8:15. One's selfishness must be aimed at the point of going back to Godhead. It's interesting, one's selfishness. So everybody has selfishness, everybody has self-interest, mainly. What else can we do? So we should aim it to the point of going back to Godhead. The ass does not know his self-interest, and it works very hard for others only. A person who works very hard for others only, forgetting his personal interest available in the human form of life, is compared to the ass. In the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, it is said,
Just disconnected.
Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, thanks. Microphone, I mean, how do you pick it up? A person who works very hard for others only, forgetting his personal interest available in the human form of life, is compared to the ass. Oh, okay, I was saying this. Asitim Chaturashchaiva Lakshams Tanjiva Jatishu Brahmadpi Purushai Prapyam Manusyam Janma Paryayat Tadapi Abhalatam Jata Tesham Atma Bhimaninam Bharakanam Annashritya Govinda Charanatwayam. Okay. The human life is so important that even the demigods in the higher planets sometimes aspire for a human body on this earth, because in the human body only, one can easily go back to Godhead. In spite of having obtained such an important body, if one does not reestablish his lost eternal relation with Govinda or Krishna, he is certainly a fool who has forgotten his self-interest. This human form of material body is obtained by a gradual process of evolution to one body after another in the cycle of 8,400,000 varieties of life. And the poor man, forgetting this importance for his own interest, involves himself in so many illusory engagements for uplifting the position of others as a leader of political emancipation and economic development. There's no harm in trying for political emancipation or economic development, but one should not forget the real aim of life. All such philanthropic activities must be dovetailed in returning to Godhead. One who does not know this is compared to the ass, who works only for others without their or his own welfare in mind. That's the end of the explanation of why this is. There could be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of footnotes like this all over. I don't know. There's no explanation why this is particular one is here. Anyway, we continue with the main body of the purport. The ass is generally engaged by the washerman, whose social position is not very respectable. And the special qualification of the ass is that it is very much accustomed to being kicked by the opposite sex. When the ass begs for sexual intercourse, he is kicked by the fair sex. Yet he still follows the female for such sexual pleasure. A henpecked man is compared, therefore, to the ass. The general mass of people work very hard, especially in the age of Kali. In this age, the human being is actually engaged in the work of an ass, carrying heavy burdens and driving. Anybody know what Thela, T-H-E-L-A, long A, is? Thela.
It's a type of vehicle, isn't it?
Huh?
It's a vehicle?
Yeah, apparently, because it's Thela.
T-H-E.
Thela, T-H-E-L-A. Thela. Thela. What is it? Is it kind of rickshaw or something?
Is that one the guys pull? Is that one the guys pull with the
Oh, rickshaw pulled by running.
It's a cart. It says it's a cart or a trolley.
It's when a horse is or a mule or a donkey pulls.
It's the guy who does that.
It's and actually it's a mobile stand. Is that like a shop?
What?
It says it's a mobile stand.
You know, there are two types of
A
rickshaws.
stand, S-T-A-N-D.
Yeah, but there's also also in Vrindavan, there used to be, I don't know now.
They used to run with it and people
No,
said
but
that.
there used to be a horse or
Oh.
driven one, and fit more people on the back, and it was called a Tunga, that's what it was called.
Oh.
Okay, it's either pushed by a man or pulled by an animal, and it's a mobile shop.
A mobile shop.
It's like they sell fruits in India.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bunch of,
Right.
and they have like 4 wheels and they just push
They
it
push
along.
it like this and put it.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, they used to come through when I lived in the suburbs. A junk man would come by, or every now and then something else would come
In
by.
America.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And of course, there was the ice cream man.
That's right.
Okay, back to transcendental topics. The so-called advancement of human civilization has engaged a human being in the work of an ass. The laborers in great factories and workshops are also engaged in such burdensome work, and after working hard during the day, the poor laborer has to be again kicked by the fair sex, not only for sex enjoyment, but for so many household affairs. So Srimad Bhagavatam's categorization of the common man without any spiritual enlightenment into the society of dogs, hogs, camels, and asses is not at all an exaggeration. The leaders of such ignorant masses of people may feel very proud of being adored by such a number of dogs and hogs, but that is not very flattering. The Bhagavatam openly declares that although a person may be a great leader of such dogs and hogs disguised as men, if he has no taste for being enlightened in the science of Krishna, such a leader is also an animal and nothing more. He may be designated as a powerful, strong animal or a big animal, but in the estimation of Srimad Bhagavatam, he is never given a place in the category of man on account of his atheistic temperament. Or, in other words, such godless leaders of dogs and hog-like men are bigger animals with the qualities of animals in greater proportion. Om Gyana Timrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Om Nilitam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. So, it's pretty strong words for humanity that animals, just dogs and hogs, camels and asses, and even the great leaders, many of whom seem to be nice, idealistic kind of people, but they eat meat and they have no knowledge of, they eat anything, eat meat, eat and drink meat and wine and all this, they have no knowledge of higher things. So they're animals, they're living an animal life, and they're collecting all that karma. Because animals, at least, don't collect karma. Animals do what they do because they can't help it. Whereas the people who act like animals, they're getting karma for it, so then they'll have to be animals to collect that karma. Or they'll have to suffer greatly in different ways to collect that karma. So, let's see, this propensity to try to enjoy, no matter how much misery it causes you, is pitiful, isn't it? Really, they have no knowledge of anything higher. Here we are in this material world trying to enjoy a bunch of dead flesh, and that we are not. We're not these dull bodies. We're living in them. We're trying to get permanent enjoyment out of them, and we can't. We're trying, and there's always suffering, and still trying. That's due to no knowledge at all. That's due to the mode of ignorance. And this trying to get pleasure out of it is due to the mode of passion. So it's, I said, that most of humanity is in the lower modes of ignorance and passion. And as we say in this purport, they're not really humanity, but most of them, people are in the lower modes. And the society supports this. Society advertises it and trains people up for it. Kids go to school and they get trained how to sit long hours in a classroom learning dull things so that they can grow up and put in long hours doing dull work. And so they are trained for it, trained to excel in the modes of passion and ignorance, which is really wonderful and kind of bleak. Definitely bleak future for them. And they don't want to. Just like the ass wants some sex life, so he approaches the female and he gets kicked, but he still does it. He still approaches. Even though you suffer, you still want. It's there's pain in it, and so listen, and there's pain and suffering, and still you hope for that moment of pleasure. Because that's all there is that you got. That's it. So I'm going to read in Bhagavad Gita about the demoniac nature. because that is what this nature is, the demoniac nature, this desire to enjoy like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. So in Bhagavad Gita chapter 16, the divine and demoniac natures, it starts out with a long list of qualities of the divine nature. And I'll read it, because these are like the opposite of the demoniac nature, and the opposite of those who are like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. And just about everything here has to do somehow directly or indirectly, is somehow related to austerity. The human form of life is for performing austerity. That's what it's for. Of course, we're going to perform austerity anyway. Like, if we're going to live like an ass and we go for sex life and get kicked, that's an austerity that you have to go through to get your sex life. So people go through all these austerities, long hours in school, working hard at the job for the paycheck. There's so many austerities they go through. Want a nice house, they spend hours and hours building a really nice house, and now you got to keep repairing it. Austerities for pleasure. So the human form of life is full of austerity, and but they're wrongly applied in most cases. So here are the qualities of the divine nature, all dependent on being able to perform some austerity against some kind of weakness for the senses. So I'll just read the list. Fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharata, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature. So all these take some kind of self-control, which is austerity, and some kind of decision to not follow the senses. Opposite is that picture of the poor soul sitting helpless in the chariot, driven by the mind, which is controlled by the senses, which is hauling it toward a cliff, which is death. And so this is most people, it's austerity to not just follow your senses, because even though you get kicked, it's easy. You don't have to exert any thought or any resistance if you're just going to follow your senses. It's kind of like easy. That's what animals do. You don't have to think. You don't have to resist. And but then your position is to be that poor soul in the chariot, helplessly driven, ultimately by the senses, heading for death. So next I will read the characteristics of the demoniac nature, text 4. Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These qualities belong to those of demoniac nature. And then there's several verses describing this in more detail. And there's this verse. There are 3 gates leading to this hell. Let's talk about hell. Let's see. Attaining spirit repeated birth among the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable types of existence. So this is a hell. This is a particular hell being described, being put in the lower species, abominable lower species, which.
You read that sentence again, please?
Does that read the sentence? Attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti.
What verses?
This is text 20 of 16, chapter 16 of Bhagavad Gita, 16:20. Such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. So animal life, lower animal life. But there's pleasures in that. Suppose you have to be a worm. Worms live in their food. They just open their mouth and crawl through it and eat. What kind of pleasure, I mean, to us, human beings, we know better, we know there's higher. But, if you're in a worm and you're in that much ignorance, you just get to follow your senses and don't even have to think about it. Just crawl through eating. And eventually something will eat you, or the nutritional value will decrease or something. It will dry up. But you get a lot of really low kind of pleasure in that way. If you want material pleasure, you get to enjoy eating all day. So anyway, that's a hell to be in that kind of situation. Then you will For one thing, you can't think about anything truly happy like God, and you can't, or even beauty or any of those things that we appreciate. You can't think about any of those things. And you'll be eaten. You'll dry up or you'll be eaten. So anyway, there are 3 gates leading to this hell. This is text 21. Lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. So it's all on the same topic, especially lust and greed. Anger also is a sort of sense gratification, because you feel anger and you go for it. You know, and it feels good for the moment to be good and angry and express it and everything out of control. It feels kind of good for a minute. Also, lust, trying to enjoy your senses, and greed, trying to collect more and more. So these are all, puts one in the category of dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. This is another way of describing it. There's so many, it's amazing that the teachings are actually so simple, and yet there's so many different ways of describing, so that from every angle we can start to get the idea. Is that a hand raise?
Yes, it's okay if I ask a question. When Krishna says never,
She never said yes.
really mean never?
What?
When Krishna says they'll never attain me, does he really mean never?
Well, such persons never attain. If you want to get out of that category of such persons, then you have a
Never,
chance.
never, ever?
No, that's a such persons.
Not in that category.
Okay.
If you're in that category,
Yeah,
you're
they
never.
might have.
Once they've gone through that whole
Yeah, when they change,
thing,
They can change their heart, yeah. Can become a devotee, can get converted.
Don't worry about people.
Well, yeah, that's good. That's what we preach. But people can be, but they may choose to reject what we say. They may want to go down. And that's why there's a nice hefty population of lower species all over the place. Because
I've met people who say, well, maybe it's not so bad.
right, I met somebody in a parking lot who said he wanted to be an eagle. And I said, older man too, strange. So he liked to hunt, I guess. He admired the eagles. And I said, well, I told him all the reasons why it wasn't good to be an eagle, how you'd have to suffer and how you'd have to die eventually. Anyway, he didn't care. He said, that's all right. I want to be an eagle. So I said, have a nice flight. They could, what can I say? So have a nice flight. So, yeah, the people who want to be like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. They want to be greedy and selfish and all this because they want to get their pleasure. That's lower modes. Ignorance, not knowing there's a higher pleasure, and not knowing that you're not really happy, and passion, trying to get pleasure, always working for it. So ignorance and passion. So that's the demoniac nature. So here's the manual to escape these 3 gates of hell. How do we escape it? By cultivating the divine qualities, by practice of the right kinds of austerities as guided by the spiritual master. So anyway, the man who has escaped these 3 gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination. So that's the opposite. But going back 1 chapter to 15, this is how lost everybody is in this world. I'm just going to read about the upside down banyan tree. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. And it says, the branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the 3 modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down the strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which having gone one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. So the demonic mentality means being lost in this upside-down banyan tree, and even the Vedas give you directions to go up and down and around the banyan tree upside down, and to have different kinds of sense pleasure according to the different modes and different desires. So with the weapon of detachment from this whole process, this whole Vedic Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha process, the detachment from that, and detachment from the idea that I'm just going to get what I want using the, passion, ignorance stuff that I want to just enjoy, even though I'm getting kicked, even though I'm using my own, sucking my own blood, eating anything, getting some master who'll treat me like dirt and just give me a little bit, and so on. I'm begging and making a fool of myself, and so on, and just getting kicked for every pleasure. What was the beginning of that? That was a long sentence. That they choose that, or you can get free of it by choosing detachment, or detachment from all of this business. And detachment is very close friend of austerity. And austerity is that which humans are supposed to do. So detachment is almost like a synonym for it. Because you perform austerities of not following those things, do something else that's better for you spiritually. So human life is supposed to do austerity, and it's supposed to be detached from all these things that, the dogs, hogs, camels, and asses are grabbing for. So that we can actually develop love for Krishna and become real human beings. We're supposed to be real human beings, offering nice vegetarian food to Krishna, chanting his holy names, hearing about his pastimes, and going back to Godhead, which is what we're really supposed to do. So, with that, in chapter 2, I'm just going to read some nice little verses here about detachment, because Arjuna wants to know how this person can be detached. Let's see. Okay, I want to read this one, 270. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled, but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. The man who strives to satisfy desires ends up like a donor hog or camel ass. Or it can be higher than that. Okay, the Vedic system, still trying to strive to satisfy these desires. You might be doing it by dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Okay, according to the Vedic rules. At least there is a way that humans can do it that's under Krishna's guidance, and that will elevate. But it will not get you out of the material world, and you can still go back down again, because you're still looking for some kind of sense gratification. So if you want real peace, all that stuff, you don't let it disturb you. You just think about, you're just meditating on self-realization and Krishna. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. That is the way of the spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. So, only by Krishna consciousness is there adequate guidance to how to do this. So, we are very fortunate to be here. Yeah, okay. I guess you just read my mind. It sounds like she's wrapping up, so I'm going to be first.
I don't know, I don't want to do that a long time. Is it time for questions?
Yes, time for questions.
He had it time.
Yeah, he was
He always in the
anticipating.
front, he
Yes.
always gets to go
I can
first.
Yeah,
feel
no.
it. It
He
gets to
knows me
me
well enough to
first.
know when the end is coming.
He used a set of words. So, and then you do a completion. Comment and question. In Bhagavad Gita 16:7, those who are demoniac and let me start again. Those who are demoniac do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness nor proper behavior nor truth is found in them. And when Prabhupada uses that word cleanliness, and we had a discussion of this in another class, cleanliness is not about washing hands and brushing teeth. It's usually sex life. The cleanliness.
Yeah, I mean, that's the broadest understanding.
Right. The terms dog eat dog, it seems like those humans that are not in an enlightened state even use terms that are animalistic, like it's a dog-eat-dog world,
Rat race.
the rat race, the
Something
big
like
dog,
The
like
big
the
dog.
person who's the boss is the big dog.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting that they kind of
Mhm.
get this. There was years ago, there was a song out, "Who Let the Dogs Out?" And they're not talking about. It's like, wow, they have dogs running through the streets. No, they're talking about people.
Or eating like a
And
pig.
I'm a dog, and who the dog chased the cat. They're talking about men chasing women. It's like coded, but they kind of know, or the culture, some cultures actually really know
Yeah.
about the eat like a pig. Yeah,
Everybody kind of
Oh,
knows.
it's like
and
acting
people
like a
don't know
hog.
There's a higher choice. They don't know that they
There
can do
was
that.
actually a song in the late 60s. I don't know if Bob Dylan's out. Dogs run free, why can't we?
wow. And didn't Elvis say something about?
I don't know, but
I ain't nothing but a.
a hound dog. Yeah, ain't nothing but a hound dog.
Mhm.
But dogs aren't free because
Mm.
if you watch them, their whole head is just ears, nose, tongue, and big eyes. And wherever those, the
Nothing
nose,
much big in between.
and so whatever they hear, or whatever they see, or whatever they smell, they're just dragged by their senses. That's not freedom.
It's easy. You don't have to think about it. Just, go this way. Go that way.
Again, that was the point. I don't have to worry where I have sex, where I eat, whatever.
Yeah.
When you think about it, in one way, the animal's like, where are you going to sleep tonight? Well, I don't know. That's what it is. I'm in the bush or something. I don't know. Maybe it's back door over here. What are you going to eat? I'll find something laying around.
Yeah.
So I have to worry about cooking and going to the grocery store, getting anything ready. Just whatever around. And in some ways, that's kind of a free life. I mean, you might say in a way, but that was, I always found that even then, because I was just beginning to find out, but I just thought that sounded weird. Dogs aren't free. I mean, come on. It wasn't very intelligent. Dogs aren't free. Why can't we? I want to be a dog.
Yeah, they're definitely not based on intelligence. Actually,
All right.
okay, Lauren.
I had to go, so this was a skip. I saw something last night, Tulsi Gabbard speaking in Los Angeles, Radiation. And I think it's in WhatsApp, Kimberly, you can see. It's amazing what this lady can get up on the podium. And her voice is so sweet. And she just spoke saying, I can't speak like her, but I picked up something what she said. She said, we all should be like Arjuna, follow the instructions of Bhagavad Gita and follow what Krishna said. And to like hundreds and thousands of people,
That's cool.
she gets up there and then she just says this exact word.
Mhm.
Haribol, let's chant and be happy, or something like this.
And she's running for president of the United States.
And
That's
she's
amazing.
standing there, Radhayatra, LA, and speaking there. Vibhuti Prabhu always was telling me all about her. I never had time to read, I just happened to see on WhatsApp
She did
today.
it in New York too. The New York she got up and led a kirtan.
Yeah.
She did a kirtan.
That's amazing.
And then she spoke a little.
And her husband played guitar or something.
Yeah, play guitar,
Yeah.
So, did you have your hand up?
No, weird.
Marty?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it was.
Oh,
There was something about we were talking about. Anyway.
About animals?
Yeah.
all morning.
There was something that the Guruji was saying.
What, dogs run free?
What was the point you were making?
I was saying that there was a song in the late 60s, and it was dogs run free, why can't we? We want to live like, they don't have to worry about where they're going to live.
I remember now. So what's the most interesting thing is that Maya actually makes these species happy in that life.
Yeah,
That's what's amazing.
or
And that's
moments
what's
of,
so difficult when you have humans that are really
moments of happiness or low rate. Yeah.
I like the worm in school. They probably gave the example. I think that was the example. You try to take them out, you just want to go back in. He's
Mhm.
enjoying.
Yeah, the women's stool, the pig that Indra was cursed to be a hog, and he had his little hog family in the mud, and he didn't want to leave in the end.
Believe it, yeah.
Yeah.
You're
The
happy.
king of heaven.
That's the
Yeah.
craziest part, but I mean, wow.
Power of illusion. Yes, you have it?
No, just since you're talking about animals, there wasn't anything, no animal was completely bad because like in Uddhava Gita, they'll draw from that the Brahmana that was just trying to see the good and everything, get spiritual guidance from all of these types of entities. Like the dog, he thought was so loyal, if he could give that loyalty, so each thing or animal represented a certain quality that he saw as, oh, this person's my guru because he's teaching me how to be loyal.
He would have had to translate that into a high human understanding, because otherwise you're just a stupid loyalty to somebody who feeds you. So he read. Ultimately, Super Soul was guiding him in this, because to apply to intelligence, he would have to translate it into the highest human understanding. Otherwise, what's the use of?
Well, it was completely God conscious.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we had the dog, I actually there's so many things, and I've heard actually John Conn said also that a dog can sleep anywhere, is loyal, is tolerant. I mean, sometimes I'll be walking, changing my rounds, and accidentally kick one in the head, and no problem, smiling, yeah.
I don't think they care that much about
Yes, no. Well, anyway, the point is that, but I remember hearing one devotee say once, well, if I am a tree, or I won't know that I'm, so what's the problem? Because like you were just saying, it seems that everybody seems to be satisfied like that. But we know better that that's not satisfaction, that's not pleasure. And I look at the trees along, I'm walking from here to there, and I see these trees, and I just feel that they're stuck in that position. They can't move. And you can see, sometimes some of the trees actually have features that look like a person almost, the way the person's standing. And you just feel like, how long have they been standing there? I heard Prabhupada giving a class the other day. He said in California, you saw these trees, the redwoods, that some of them are 7,000 years old, being in that position. And there's also, Prabhupada said you can be a rock or a mountain, like Stone Mountain in Georgia. It's actually alive because it's growing.
It's growing.
It's growing, yeah.
Wow.
And being in that kind of a birth.
Yeah.
And Prabhupada said that was, he told, it was on a walk with Swarup Damodar. He said that Mayavadi, for Nivishesha Sunyavadi, impersonals for Mayavadi. That's not, you say, oh, they don't know any better. Well, yeah, but we know better, and they're not really happy. They're not,
Right.
It's a real waste,
And they always have to die, even though it was stone. Somehow it has to end. It has to dissolve in the final dissolution, or it has to be cracked up or something. It has to end somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes the human beings, they actually resemble animals, because I had an experience one time on Sankirtan, a long time ago. There was this man, I stopped, and he really reminded me of a steer, like a male big bull or cow or something. And I asked him, what kind of work do you do? And he said he was a cattle rancher.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I was really surprised.
Well, sometimes, we'd be on Sankirtan in the parking lot, and you go to approach a person behind the steering wheel, and it's actually the dog. And it looks like the person. It has this. And sometimes if you see a dog and their master, there's a certain kind of resemblance a lot of times.
That's what they say, yeah.
They've even done scientific, if you want to go further, scientific studies about couples who have been together a very long time and start to resemble each other. And I started to, just talking before I even read that.
I guess we have a ways to go here.
It's like, I guess the consciousness, it's like,
Yeah.
I guess that they're really, really attached to.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't trying to talk about race, but there in different races you can sometimes see people who remind you of each other anyway, so it's not about race, but
Yeah,
It's
I
still
guess it depends
different.
on our attachment, where our attachment is,
Yeah.
that's what we're cultivating that
We
person.
really look alike in some ways. Anyways, he's had his hand up for a little while.
Oh, along those lines, some people who are really enamored with themselves, they do select a mate that looks like
That's true.
themselves.
Sometimes it's not.
And they say, are you brother and sister? No, we're husband and wife.
Well,
By
that's
the
scary.
way,
That's creepy.
I've seen that and heard about that and read about that. People
I've seen
select a mate that looks like them because they love themselves. It's almost, what's that?
Christians don't do that.
What's the
very much.
person that looked in the water and saw themselves and they named the flower after them?
Narcissus.
Okay.
Narcissus.
A Narcissus. But the point was that spiritual life, when you come from the hog and dog life and go to the spiritual life, it's like a razor's edge because now you know.
Mhm.
So if you commit these atrocities and sin, no, it's held against you a little bit different
Yeah,
because now you know. Now you are a knower,
yeah.
and it's like someone did all kind of outlandish rock star life type stuff before they became a devotee. But now as a devotee, if they slipped into that, it's kind of
Yeah.
even karmically, it could be a harsher punishment.
I was thinking about, I want to say one more thing that I was thinking about is we were talking about how we can actually learn from the animals and get qualities, and we can also be compared to them for being low class, low consciousness. I guess what the difference is the mentality, the consciousness, the purpose you're thinking of it. If you're thinking how to serve Krishna, then you can look at the animals and see them through those glasses.
Right.
And get some idea of some qualities that way to serve your purpose of serving Krishna and giving the highest welfare to serving the devotees and giving the highest welfare to all. Or you can look at it you put other glasses on and say, how do I want to avoid the bad qualities? You can look at the animals too, see the same qualities in the animal and look through different glasses because of the consciousness that you're thinking in. You're trying to think of the highest human consciousness or you're trying to think of the animal's consciousness. Because the animal isn't being loyal out of some kind of godly sentiment. The animal is just thinking, this person might feed me, so this person might protect me, so I'll stick with them.
Yeah, and when you first, unless the dog is trained, with dogs that is, you have to keep them on a leash. And that's like the, sadhana bhakti. Once you get to a certain point with the dog, he'll do or she'll do exactly what you want. When they're trained, so the leash. It's not that you don't practice sadhana bhakti, but I thought it was sort of an interesting kind of example. You have to be under these rules, and then you are part of the rules. Then it's no longer an issue.
You don't necessarily need the external
You don't
vision,
need
you
the
still
extra.
be there.
Yeah, be there, right?
Yeah. Anything else? Thank
It's
you.
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh.
Go ahead. You
I was going to talk about dogs and animals have predictable, it's sort of somewhat addictive behaviors.
So do people.
And so do people. And sometimes a person in that throw of their addiction, they don't realize that they're, some of the people that we met, they were 12-steppers, and they talk about people that they met. It's like the person didn't realize they were slipping back into that. Drinking or whatever the issue was. They didn't know what happened to me. It happened so quick. So it's nice that we have Krishna consciousness.
Fall down. That's an accidental fall down because that previous conditioning is so strong, you don't catch the signs.
Yeah, you don't go to a bar if you have a problem with. You don't go to
Yeah.
a certain.
Well, you may.
Why go to?
Yeah,
That's why it's not proper to put
It's
yourself
called
in
an
a situation.
accidental fall down in 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. If your conditioning is so strong that you just don't notice yourself going that way and becoming precarious, and then also, say it's not that you're going along in perfect condition and you trip on some root or something and you all of a sudden you commit a sin.
Mm-hmm.
It's that you didn't notice your previous conditioning acting on you.
And that's why you don't go to a bar if you have issues with
Right.
drink.
You stay away from. You have to be alert to what the previous conditioning might be and stay away from those situations. But you could slip, so we have to be really careful.
And
But
don't pick it up.
The thing is is that also, I just wanted to make this point because that sounded like I was advocating having a dog. But I'm not. But,
Well, you could learn. Krishna had 2 dogs.
But
didn't
I actually
Krishna-
had 4. But,
he? You be Krishna.
they were strays that the common kept taking in, and then they died. But, you know, it's like if you get too attached, then like Bart Maharaj, you're thinking about them. And they may interfere with your own sadhana. So, you know, you can learn from them, but you don't, want to get too attached and want to do
That could also
Wasn't
be
it-
an accidental fall down.
Wasn't it Pablo, the doctor, the psychologist that came up with the observation that you feed the dog, ring the bell?
conditioned response.
We're conditioned. And we're like that too, our animal side, the dog side. But we have to be very careful because you're right. It can be an accidental fall down if you put yourself in a situation that the bell rings. And whatever that bell is, that's why you don't want to mix, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
It's very, very
Don't go
easy.
there.
Because I remember a long time ago, my sister said this
You are an animal.
butterfly farm for my kids, and they hatch these butterflies. And just a few days they were in the house, and they were sucking on some sugar nectar you gave them. And a storm came in, so I couldn't release them. And then, so little by little, I realized I was getting attached, because when it came time to release them, I was so fearful for birds. Suddenly birds looked like demons. And then I was like, something going to happen to them. I let go, but I had to do it. And I was like, let them go.
Can happen.
And it was like, yes, it's so easy to get really, you don't even know you're attached to like something like that.
Razor's edge. Yeah.
You know what I was just thinking yesterday, today, was how when you decide that you want to work on envy,
My what?
well, like if you want to work on envy,
Envy.
you meditate on that, how am I envious? Why am I envious? And things like that.
What am I envious of?
Right. It seems like you get those tests. They come, and it like surfaces more. And I question myself, like, why am I having such a hard time? Why are these things coming up in my mind? And then I realized it's because I'm asking about it, I'm wondering. And so it's coming so that I can become free from it or swallowed up by it. But I was thinking that the other day, that it's important that we, just chanting the process of hearing and chanting, everything comes. But when you work on something, then,
And the thing is that's what's good about classes. And if the classes actually have like a discussion like this, then it helps you to fortify yourself or to understand. Oh, that's what's going on. Or what you were just saying. You're realizing that I've been wanting to work on this, and that's why.
That's the application.
Yeah.
You get some application.
And so it's a science. What they does, it's a science. All the ingredients are there. Just like in an experiment, you have to do it according to put the right amount of sugar in, the right amount of this, and at the right temperature, and so on and so forth. So.
Yeah, and also just listening to other Vaishnavas helps to verify and clarify what we're thinking. Otherwise, you're just thinking.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking I'm the only one, and I hear, you too?
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
Especially the discussions,
Or sometimes, I thought I was the smart one, the only one thinking like this. Everybody is. Oh, oops.
Yeah, it's all.
That's the Guru Sadhu Shastra too.
Jai. Hare Krishna. Of course, there's the famous song, Bing Crosby sang it, I think in Going My Way or The Bells of St. Mary. It's the mule song. Would you like to sing on a star? Carry moonbeams home in a jar, and be better off than you are.
Or would you rather be a mule?
A mule.
Is animal.
That's amazing that it was mule, hog, and fish. I mean, it's amazing. That was back in the 40s. I
think human beings naturally
Observe.
kind of notice when they're acting like animals. They kind of notice.
And some people don't.
Right.
That's the Pavlovian thing.
Sometimes they justify and say, yeah, I like to, I like to be like this.
Well, like the celebrities, the so-called celebrities in America, they so many of them have horrible examples, like, more animalistic. It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
sad situation because they're in the media so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like the horse that stopped at the bar,
Oh.
and the wife found out that the husband went to the bar because the horse always stops
It was
at
my,
the bar.
my great-grandmother took the horse to town, and the horse would stop at the bar. She
On
took
his
the horse,
own.
hitched up the horse to the wagon and go to town.
Oh, really?
And the horse would stop at the
Oh,
bar,
wow.
and she knew what her husband did, you know.
Well, why does this horse always stop right at this bar?
This is my place, this is my stopping place, I don't have to.
I'm supposed to stop there. And he said, you must think I'm an animal.
That was back
People
in
do
the days
this.
of temperance, the
And they don't see
We had a
themselves.
bar, so I don't.
Yeah, but they were especially the women were striving to get the men to stop stopping at the bar. So that's when the whole
Oh.
prohibition thing started. The late 1800s, building in the late 1800s, and then it took root in the 1900s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Haribo.
Okay, thank you all very much. All praise to Prabhupada, all praise to Srimad Bhagavatam.